Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And keep our breakfast time on schedule so we can adjourn promptly. As we say, 0900 hours. We will now start our program. The buffet will remain open. The coffee is still hot. So please, if you care to go back for your third or fourth helping, go right ahead. It's a great honor to welcome everybody this morning. My name is Alan Alpert. I am a past president of the Chelsea Chamber of Commerce and the Director of Emergency Management and 911 for the city. And in welcoming people, I would like to welcome 3 new members of the Chamber and just ask that they stand when I call their name. And if for some reason one of them's not here, somebody else stand up so we'll at least think all 3 are here. Andrea Walsh. Oh, Andrea from Dry Wash. Where's Andrea? Did I follow up the name of the company?
Yes.
I did. What?
From Wash Cycle Laundry.
Oh, wow. It's an awful lot of words in there. Welcome. Megan Perlow from Poppy Floral. Good morning. And Justin Brown from 3 Hills Real Estate. Justin, welcome. Now it gives me a great deal of pleasure to call upon the Executive Vice President for the Chamber, who is right now currently the Acting President, Joseph Mahoney. Need a little marching music.
Thank you. Hello? Hello. I am unfortunately acting, so I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to be doing here. Let's see. We are happy to again be sponsored in May, which is Small Business Month by Eastern Bank. And Mr. I forget now where you gave me the business card, but I can't find the business card. Actually,
myself.
Oh, good.
How's that?
okay.
Let's do that. I've had too much coffee this morning. So bear with me all.
We have a little drum roll.
Go ahead. Good morning, everyone. It's a great honor to be here. I'm an attendee of Chelsea Chamber of Commerce, and I love being here. And one of the reasons is that I feel right at home with my accent here. So I am going to introduce myself. So good morning. I'm Ashley Ives. I'm Senior Vice President at Eastern Bank. I manage a lenders team of 10 people who are covering Greater Boston area. One of my team members right here, Vicki, she actually lives in Chelsea and covers Chelsea. She's great, so if you need anything, please see her. And I have my great friend Hugh, who's been the branch manager here forever. He's been in Chelsea for 20 plus years. We are great to, we feel honored and privileged to be here. Here at Eastern Bank, we support small businesses, minority business owners, veterans. We give back to our community. 10% of our bottom line every year after year, goes back to the nonprofit organizations in our community where we serve. That 10% since 1999 adds up to $120 million, and we're proud of that. We were established in 1818, so it's in 200 years. We're celebrating our 200-year anniversary basically this coming June. And we're going to be celebrating at the Seaport, at the Convention Center with Big Puppy, so please come and join us. We rolled out our 200th anniversary celebration last year with Join Us Good campaign, and we invite everyone to join us to do good. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy your breakfast.
Thank you, Ashley. And I do want to say, I'll put in a little plug for you there. He does a great job. That's it? I'm all set? Wow. Do I get a last stuff?
No, but if you keep trying to get laughs from the podium, you'll never get to be president. Ashley, thank you very much, and thank you so much for being a sponsor for the breakfast series. This is probably the first time in all the years I've been doing the emceeing for the chamber that I have a blank bio for our guest speaker. Because if I had a printed bio, it would probably be 5 or 6 pages long. So I know our speaker today does not need any introduction. And just before I call upon our speaker, I just want to mention the name of some of the dignitaries that we have so the secretary will know exactly who came out to see him other than the members of the chamber. So I'd ask you to hold your applause until the end, because some people may get more of an applause than somebody else, so we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So, we're going to start off with, and I don't think I saw him, Representative Dan Ryan, Representative Paul Donato, our city manager, Thomas Ambrosino, Superintendent of Chelsea Public Schools, Dr. Mary Bork, the Superintendent of the Soldiers Home, Cheryl Poppy, Chief of Police, Brian Keyes, City Councilor at Large, Leo Robinson, Al Ewing, the Executive Director of the Chelsea Housing Authority, and from Jay's office, former City Councilor Juan Vega. If I left anybody off the list, go tell Rich Cuffey, because he wrote the list out. Did I leave anybody out? Hey, Rich, you did okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to call upon not only a Chelsea-born and brought-up person, but our former city manager, who, even though he has moved on to the state and on to bigger and better things, we have the street outside that's named after him, so we can never forget about Jay Ash and all the wonderful things that he has not only done for the city, but will continue to do for the city in his present capacity. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to call upon someone I call my friend, Secretary Jay Ash.
And then you have to do a selfie.
I'm actually taking a selfie of myself. If you all want to wave. All right, so Gary Schumann asked me if I had prepared remarks. How could I have prepared remarks here? Because this, Alan, I'm going to start with you. I can't put it in this on paper because the Globe would ask for it. So almost every morning I have a speaking engagement all around the state, and it's always Chamber of Commerce's, most often Chamber of Commerce's. And Peter, we're laughing at the table as Ellen is talking about hold your applause, because some people will feel like they're not as well liked as others and they get different levels of applause. I'm at these Chamber of Commerce events and I'm thinking about all these things as the MC is up there, and I'm thinking about you. I mean, Alan, I think about you all the time. All the time. I swear I'm not making this stuff up. Yesterday afternoon, I met with a real innovative company that is looking to establish industrial biomanufacturing in the state. And all I could think about, Alan, is they were talking about all the processes and all the chemicals involved. All I could think about was methyl ethyl bad stuff. Which, for those of you who haven't been around Alan, haven't been around an emergency situation, he talks about it all the time, methyl ethyl bad stuff. And so, our roots here in Chelsea remind us of all of these things. I was, again, telling Gary Schumann this morning that I was in Lee, Mass recently, and there was a developer from Lee who actually is a New York resident. And he read my bio before we got together to meet, and he said, I understand you grew up in Chelsea. I said, yes. He said, my grandparents lived in Chelsea. And so I said, really, do you know what street? And he said, Cottage Street. Cottage Street is where I grew up. It's where Carrie Schumann grew up. I said, do you happen to know what number? He said, 10 Cottage Street. That was, first of all, impressing his grandparents. Who knows their grandparents' address? 60 years ago. Yeah, exactly. It's the same house that you live in now. So, a couple of Fridays ago, we spent 4 hours driving around Chelsea. I brought him in, and we actually stood on the porch at 10 Cottage Street. I told him about the family that lived there when I grew up. Ray Diamond lived there. And we went up and down the street, and we stopped at places that they would have shopped, like Glassman's, the old Glassman's on the corner, and went by the Street Chill to see where they may have worshiped. And it's those connections that I get to make around the state, where people tell me about their Chelsea relationships, which are the most rewarding. You know, and so it's really great to be back here with all of you, and to this flood of memories, seeing all of you, and frankly, missing all of you. It's great to be here. I'm going to tell you a dream that I had.
Was that you?
Strangely, yes, and mosquitoes involved. So, Ambrosino, I don't want you to get alarmed. I don't want you to get alarmed about this dream, but I had the best dream. This is like 3 or 4 months ago. I had the best dream. It's like the best dream I've had in a long time. And I woke up and I was so excited. And I was so excited because the dream I had was that I was the city manager of Chelsea. And there were so many good things happening, and I woke up and I thought, oh, I'm not the city manager of Chelsea. I have a great job. I work with a great guy, Governor Baker. It's great to work with legislators. Paul Donato, who's a member of leadership of the House, is here. Representative Donato, thank you for being here, a guy that I look up to. So I have a great job, but like many of us who have grown up here, many of us who have really lived our life in Chelsea, going off and doing, as Ellen said, bigger and better things, isn't really the case. It's bigger and different things. It's not bigger and better things. The time that I spent here, the time that I spent with all of you was time that I really cherish, and it was really important to me. And there isn't a time that I'm not in a place and I see something and I remember being back here. You know, I was driving by, saw some guys out in the field recently, and was wondering when Bruce was going to be calling about softball. Tonight, I heard about that. Yeah, exactly. I start my day here, and I will be ending my day as a resident of Springfield. I will be sleeping at the La Quinta Inn tonight in Springfield, so I will not be able to make the softball game tonight. But I go from CEO office to president of university office, and what do I see in more and more of those offices? Chelsea Clock. And I get to tell them about the Chelsea Clock stories. You know, and then I go to my favorite hot dog place in Worcester, Coney Island Hot Dogs, and I laugh because I have to go all the way to Worcester to get a can of hot dogs. You know, so the connections here are really strong. Tom, Leo, members of the City Council and School Committee, congratulations for all you continue to do. A really nice thing as I go around is that people have really good things to say about what we have all accomplished in Chelsea. And lots of places say to me that they would like to accomplish what Chelsea is accomplishing. And that's a really great feeling. So thank you for continuing, Tom. Thank you for continuing. I'm so thrilled with Tom's leadership. And if, as much as I have these dreams and I want to be city manager again, it's nice to know that such a good friend, but more importantly, such an accomplished professional is is picking up where I left off and building on better things. So, Tom, congratulations for all you do. You can applaud. Alan's prohibition about applauding stops after you get to the microphone, so applaud at any time you feel it. Juan Vega is a very important part of my staff, and he feeds into the Chelsea thing as well. Juan's Assistant Secretary for Communities and Programming, and has developed a reputation in the administration, which none of you are going to be surprised about, is really high. Juan got to represent me just recently at a cabinet meeting, so sat with all the big cheeses, and did quite well for himself, and so it's been a pleasure to have him here. And probably the most important person on my staff is the person that gets me ready every day to go off and do everything. I have like 6 or 7 or 8 appointments a day. I usually give 2 or 3 speeches a day. And Molly Burke, related to Mary Burke, is actually a young professional in my office who just is absolutely incredible. And I remember watching Molly as a high school student on the stage at Chelsea High School, and now she just performs miracles in my office. So Mary couldn't be more proud of what the Burkes have produced here in Chelsea, but more importantly, what another Chelsea student doing well in the world and making a mark in the world. So I get to work with some of you still. Al Ewing's in my office all the time with Leo and others of you. My first call this morning as I came down was with Christine Thomas of this hotel fame. I start my calls around 6:30 in the morning, and Christine is one of those ones that I can call at any time. So the connections are really strong. There's so many of you here that I could talk about, and really appreciate all that you've done and all the support that you've given over the years. Got a great gig, and I get to go around the state, and when people see me walk into town, they see a giant dollar sign. So, democratically controlled legislature has given a Republican governor $1 billion economic development bill, and I get to go around the state and spend it. So I go to city and town, and I tell cities and towns that I have money for them to do this, that, or the other thing. Danny Ryan's here, Rep. Chelsea and Charlestown. Because Danny's late, I'm going to have to stop my speech over again. No, okay, thank you, Danny. The joke sounded as funny the second time. So I go around the state, and I get to drop off money all over the place. In fact, the governor just recently said to me, Jay, everywhere I go, I hear good things about you. And so I said to him, Governor, if you give me another $100 million, think about grant money, you'll hear even better things about me. But it's a pleasure. Here's the thing that, so I love going around to other cities. I love to reflect on what the Chelsea experience is. I really get excited when they talk about, geez, we'd like to do something like what you did, like this hotel in Chelsea. And here's my problem with it. Just when I understand the issue, just when I'm ready to get deep into it, I roll up my sleeves, and as I'm rolling up my sleeves, I see my watch. And as I see my watch, I see it's time to leave Springfield. I got to get to Chicopee. So the great thing that we all had here, that I had here in Chelsea, was that 1.8 square miles, and I was 1.8 square miles deep. You know, I like to say not only did I know where all the bodies were buried here in Chelsea, but I may have buried them. My problem is that I'm 351 communities wide by like an inch deep. And so the challenge that I have is to try to replicate relationships and the understanding that I had here and really be able to do things in communities. And we're having some success at that. The governor said, you know, when I was talking about this, the governor says, well, why don't we adopt a city? And so after thinking about it a lot, we adopted Lynn. And so Secretary of Housing and Economic Development, along with the Secretary of Transportation and the Secretary of Environmental Affairs, have adopted Lynn. In addition to them, because of the governor's involvement, the Congressman Moulton, has actually invested an unbelievable amount of time. And city government and the state legislative delegation has welcomed us in. And as a result, after 3 years, we're ready to embark upon a building campaign in Lynn that's going to transform the Lynnway. As many as 2,000 housing units are on the development there, and it's really incredible. I think the opportunity that exists in Lynn. It shows that the focus, when you bring a focus and you decide you're going to make an impact on a place, how everyone can come together. And just as we did here at Chelsea, the folks at Lynn have put their bags to the side and said, you know, we're all going to work, we're all going to row to in the same direction. And as a result, places that were really tough to develop are now ready to be redeveloped in a way that will look like what I get to drive through every day when I come down and I see all the wonderful development we've done here. So it's a good time to be the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development. The economy is strong. I am getting a call a day, a call a week from a new company looking to come here to Massachusetts. And those companies aren't talking about scores of jobs or even hundreds of jobs. I'm dealing with companies that want to bring thousands or even tens of thousands of jobs. Some of you may have heard that Amazon is thinking about locating its North American headquarters in Boston or 19 other places around the country. And so I get to work on those things. We get to talk about all the wonderful things that we have here in Massachusetts. I say to companies all the time, if you're looking for the biggest incentive package, you're in the wrong place. But if you're looking for the best workforce, the most educated workforce, the most talented and innovative workforce, Massachusetts is where you need to be. So I actually sell all of you. You know, I talk about all of you. I talk about all of us here in Massachusetts, and it wins the day an awful lot. GE came here not as a result of a big incentive package that we gave. We had to give them enough to be competitive. But GE came here because they said, if we are going to recreate ourselves in the 21st century, we can't think of another place that we'd rather be than in the middle of all the innovative, smart people that are here in Massachusetts. And so that includes all of us. So people ask me all the time, what's your biggest success? And they think I'm going to talk about GE. And that's a really big success. But I'll tell you what I think the biggest success that the governor and I have had together is. And when I accepted the job, I said, Governor, what would you like to accomplish after your 4 years? And he said that we have 1,550 families, homeless families in hotels and motels around the Commonwealth. We need to do something about that. At the time, this is January 2015, we were in 49 hotels and motels around the state. We had more than 3,000 kids in homeless shelter and hotels and motels. And, you know, we love our hotels, right? Can't build enough of them, John, right? We love our hotels, but no kitchens, no places for kids to play, separated from their families, separated from their sports teams, separated from their schools. And so the governor and I took on that challenge. Today, we're not done yet, but today, that 1,550 families is down to 40. Got a 97% decrease. We're down to 40, 49 hotels, we're down to 1. We're in Waltham only, and we thank the people for Waltham for continuing to address the challenges that exist there. The 40 that are there, and I look at Al and Diana, just very complicated families, very big families with specialized needs, and it's tough to find housing for them, but we're working with it. And so I tell that story sometimes because it talks to what I've learned from being part of the Baker-Polito administration. I've learned two things. So the first thing is that the governor's taught me to compartmentalize, to take a look at a big problem and break it down into pieces and solve those pieces. People before us were looking at this crisis in hotels and motels and were just couldn't figure out how to get their arms around it. But you know, the old joke that Ellen's told 1,000 times, and that would just be 1 week's worth of Ellen telling jokes. But you know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And it works in public policy too. And so instead of us trying to figure out how to fix the entire system all at once, we just said, you know what, we're going to go to hotel number 1. And we're going to work on every single family in hotel number 1. We're going to find them better shelter or, more importantly, permanent housing. And we're not going to leave that hotel until we're done, and then we're going to pick up and go to the next one. And we did that over and over and over again, 48 successes later. The funniest success, I know, Diane, it's just amazing. The funniest thing for me, I'd say ironic, is because I'm the Secretary of Housing, which is important in terms of what I'm just talking about. I'm the Secretary of Economic Development, too. And so on the housing side, I'm really excited that the hotel in Danvers is closed down. I mean, it's actually like closing down. The bad news is the economic development guy is that the Denny's right next to it is closed down too. You know, how ironic, but the families are no longer there, the Denny's is no longer in business, the Denny's left. So anyway, that's a big success. Some of the things that we have going on, oh no, the second thing I've learned. So the first thing is about compartmentalizing. Second thing I learned, it's been a breath of fresh air to show up in a Republican administration. Now, some of you will look at me strange, and you know my background. You know, when Governor Baker said, Jay, I'd like you to be part of the administration, I said, Governor, you do know that I campaigned against Republicans in my lifetime. He said, yeah, I know that. I said, I may have done a dastardly thing or two during those campaigns. And by the way, some of you were there with me as I was doing those, Leo Robinson. You know, we pick up things along the way as we continue on with our everyday life. Sometimes it's about relationships, you know, and somebody crossed me 30 years ago, and I don't remember what they did to me, but I don't like them, you know. Or we had this opinion about a particular issue. You all know I was a big Suffolk Downs guy when it came to the casinos, and Wynn beat me up. Wynn beat me up during arbitration, and yet now as Secretary of the Commonwealth, Wynn is investing $2 billion, or the company that used to be known as Wynn is investing $2 billion in Everett. I have to support that. So what's been invigorating for me is that joining this Republican administration after being a lifelong Democrat has caused me to leave the bags at the door and walk in free of all the burdens that I had. Now, part of it was strange, some of you have heard me say this, I thought for sure that there'd be some sort of orientation. Right, and somebody's going to teach me how to be a Republican administrator. Never happened. And so finally I asked myself why. It's because the governor doesn't care much about the Republican way of doing things or the Democratic way of doing things. He only cares about the right way of doing things. And it's been rewarding to work with my friends who I served with when I worked for Richie Volk in the legislature, democratically controlled legislature, that gave the Republican governor $1 billion economic development bill, so his top economic development guy could go around and snap all kinds of pictures and curry favor with everybody in the state because we're dropping off money. Congratulations to the democratically controlled legislature. Public policy overrides politics. And wouldn't it be great if that was the case everywhere, right? It's working here in Michigan. So the second thing I've learned is about the spirit of bipartisanship has gotten me to a point where I've met, and you know what, I have to tell you about these Republicans that I've known for 50 years. None of them breathe fire. They're really good people. They're good people like you and me, and so what I've learned from the experience is that in Massachusetts, I have to say this in Massachusetts, I've got to qualify this from that. In Massachusetts, we share 95% of the same values, Republicans and Democrats. And oftentimes we get caught up in the last 5%. And some people really get caught up in the last 5%. I've been able to let go of that last 5%, and I think it's made me a better person because of that. Not only in my professional life, but in my personal life. It's caused me to spill over and question the notions, the relationships, the things that I've been doing over the course of my lifetime, and I'm letting go of that last 5%, and instead celebrating the 95% that I have in common with others. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about that 95% in Republicans in Massachusetts, some of you were probably at this breakfast. So there's a Boys and Girls Club breakfast going on right now. I have a challenge with the Boys and Girls Club to see how many people they get versus how many people we get. One, two, 3, 4. There's got to be 1 million people here, right? Remember, I'm part of a Republican administration. There's got to be 1 million people. Anyway, so some of you were there. Peter Blue was a congressman from Worcester, and he came to speak to a Boys and Girls Club breakfast. And Peter was talking about being a Republican in Massachusetts compared to being a Republican in the rest of the country. And he said, you know, I'll go to Washington, And I'll show up at Logan Airport, and I'll hear whispers. Goodbye, you no good lousy Republican. And I'll get to Washington, and I'll hear whispers. Oh, here comes that liberal from Massachusetts. So I recognize my 95% thing may not apply to places like Mississippi. But here in Massachusetts, we share an awful lot in common. And the bipartisanship that the legislature has worked out, you know, people were glad to see me come back to the State House after 18 years of being almost always in Chelsea, sometimes coming back. People were glad to see me come back. A lot of my friends who are still state reps would say, you know, the honeymoon will last a day or a week or a month or 6 months or a year. We're 3.5 years in, and working so well together that the governor has filed a second economic development bill. This one for $600 million. And in less than 3 weeks, the legislature had already scheduled a hearing, a joint hearing between the House and the Senate. That's how closely, how cooperatively we're all working together. And all that bad politics stuff, the blocking and tackling, we don't need to do any of that stuff. And so instead, we're spending a good deal of time on great public policy. From my end, Al, affordable housing, governor has filed a $1.2 billion affordable housing plan. Legislature has approved that to $1.8 billion. Thank you for all the earmarks, Paul. We're making a commitment on affordable housing, and we expect that bill is going to be worked out. Both the House and Senate have approved it. Some final details that need to be worked out. We expect to have that soon. The economic development bill that I talked about is working its way through. Today, the House will be debating our Mass Life Sciences bill. So Massachusetts is #1 in the country, #1 in the world. There are amazing things happening in life sciences these days, in part because of what we've done as a Commonwealth to promote it. And so to further our position in life sciences, we filed a $500 million life sciences bill. The legislature's taking that up today. We have bills to ease the process for building housing around the country. And we had a big celebration in that. Chelsea was recognized. Tom, congratulations for its work in building more housing. So there's good things going on, and the bipartisanship is really making a difference. So I want to leave a couple minutes if there's any questions, but I want to tell you that it's a good time to be in Massachusetts. It's a good time to be involved in economic development. I think we're still going to see an upward trend in all that's happening. We're excited about what's happening in city towns, and I get excited about watching what's happening here. Silver Line, the remarks on the Silver Line are from MassDOT, very high. The service is working out the way that we hoped. The development stuff that you're doing, probably, I won't say it was my proudest moment, but every now and then I like to geek out on data. And there's a state service, the Department of Revenue has a state service that talks about the fiscal conditions of cities. And so by this measure, the healthiest city is Boston. And that makes sense, right? Every place you go, there are big towers being built, and every major company wants to locate there, and every one of our kids wants to live there, and there's just so much going on. You know, the second is Cambridge, and that makes sense with the life sciences and all that other stuff. Number 3 on the list was Chelsea. It was Chelsea. I mean, you think about, you know, the dark day in 19, whatever it was, what was it, 91, we went into receivership? Yeah. You think about that, right? Here we are 27 years later, and we show up as number 3 on this chart. And more and more people want to live here, more and more people want to work here. Other communities say they want to be more like us. So it's taken a lot of work, and congratulations to everybody that's taken a lot of work. But man, it's been something. Elizabeth McBride said, you know, after we won our first All-American City Award, we talked about the pride is back. You know, that was one of the things. And she said, I never lost my pride. Right? And it was so true. Right? None of us have ever lost our pride, but now we have reasons to actually back it up. And it's all the wonderful things that you all continue to do. So thanks for continuing the legacy. Thanks for allowing me to be a small part of it. And yeah, happy to answer any questions anyone may have. Listen.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Jay, you mentioned the huge support and success that the governor and your office have had with the housing family crisis and the hotels. I'm wondering if your office has discussed any possibilities for the Puerto Rican families who have moved to the state and they're still in hotels until June 30th. There's not that many as the beginning, but I'm wondering if you've had any conversations, if there's any discussion
Great
about
question.
it.
I happen to be in Puerto Rico December, so I asked my wife, she said, yeah, it'd be okay, so we diverted, and I went and met my counterpart in Puerto Rico, and after spending an hour with him, I just wanted a hug. The crisis in December was bad, and it's not much better, you know, and it's a failure of our federal government to respond to the needs of U.S. citizens. And many of us are disturbed by that. The governor being one, and we work with a federal delegation. Our federal delegation has been amazing. I especially want to recognize both Senator Markey and Senator Warren for the leadership. We hold regular calls with our federal delegation, and the evacuees that we have here in Massachusetts is more in Western Mass than there is in Eastern Mass. So we spend an awful lot of time talking with our Western Mass colleagues, and we are continuing to work, like Secretary Acosta, who is my counterpart on labor. Secretary Acosta, this is how important this issue has been to all of us. Secretary Acosta has actually been calling major employer after major employer around Western Massachusetts to see where we might be able to place the next person. I mean, it's incredible that a secretary, you know, I know how busy my schedule is, I know how busy her schedule is. She's actually, you know, we work on the wholesale side. Like we need to do a lot of something in a big, we don't have time to focus on one thing. She's actually focused on one person at a time, trying to find them jobs. So federal government has continued to extend benefits, but those benefits are going to run out at some time. And you know, Puerto Rican evacuees are welcome to be here, and we, if they are here, we would like to help them find jobs and get on with their lives. So kids are in school and things like that. But we also recognize that there is a tug back home, and so if they want to get back home, we want to assist them in getting back home as well. We'll continue to work on trying to find ways to do that. Others?
Jeff,
Yes?
so you're back, you mentioned 1991,
Yeah?
and you and I both worked for the two men that respectively represented Chelsea.
Yes?
I'm wondering how that might have affected your political philosophy and your management style.
Working with them, or?
During that chaotic time.
You know, you learn a lot in crisis, and I learned a lot during the receivership period about how government should react to needs on the local level, how we, the state, relate to municipalities in particular. You know, I tell this story all the time, and it sometimes frustrates people, but we, the state, don't go into a community and tell a community how it's going to be. You know, so I'm city manager for 14 years, and some state official, some federal official would saunter into town, and you know what you need to do? You need to do this. And I would say to them, you know what you need to do? You need to leave. Right? Because on the local level, you live it every day. You breathe it every day. You really know what the needs of the community are. So I like to think of the experience I had during receivership in that tumultuous period as one where the state can do a better job at supporting its communities, but actually it's the community that really needs to find its way, and we have a responsibility to extend as much as we can. So what I try to do is I go into cities and towns and I'll listen to people about what their aspirations are for their communities. And then I'll try to help them achieve those if I think those aspirations make sense. If they don't, I owe them the favor of saying to them, you know, I'm not getting it. I'm not feeling it. I actually, 2 weeks ago, I was in a community, and a member of the city council was telling me something, and I said, I got to tell you something. I'm not buying what you're selling. And explain in an adult manner. You know, I wasn't trying to be critical. I was just trying to help them understand what the world around them was like. And 3 people came up to me afterwards and said, "Thank you for speaking up about that. That, you know, you needed to hear that." I was in another community where their economic development strategy was not about, you know, taking down old stuff. Remember, related to this site here, but not on this site, on the Wyndham site. And let me take it back for a minute. So, so I'm going to take it back to the, by the way, the old geezers in the room are here. So, on the Wyndham site, the reason why we did an urban renewal project, on the Wyndham site, there had been a car on the Wyndham site that had been there so long that a tree was actually running up through the car. Right? And so that's how long that site had been. So, you know, I went to this community and I said, "What's your vision for economic development?" And they weren't talking about getting rid of the old and bringing in the new. The strategy was to build a drive-in theater. And that was their economic development strategy. And the idea was, I know Diane's rolling her eyes saying, "Really? I'm not making this up." And so, community needs some help. And you know, I think a little bit about back in the days. And I said, I can't let them just think that that's a viable strategy. And so I challenged them. I said, you know, and the idea was, well, you know, people will drive in from around the state. They'll have a good time. They'll think better about our community. And I said, yeah, but then they'll leave. Nobody goes shopping after a drive-in theater. And by the way, drive-in theaters are. And so help them focus on some other things, and now there are some good things happening there. So the experience has been that the governor served as a local elected official. He was a selectman in Swampscott. Certainly my experience at the municipal level here, and having Juan around me, and the deputy secretary, Carolyn Kirk, was the mayor of Gloucester. Having that local experience, what we try to do is we try to service communities. We try to help focus them in the right direction, and then do everything we can to find that, and spend a lot of time talking about, and I think Leo would appreciate this, and Tom practices it. You know, Roseanne, when she was on the council, Juan, when he was on the council, all good things happen from a balanced budget. And so we talk to communities all the time about the need to balance the budget and what you need to do in order to do that. So anyway, that's some of the things I learned from that experience. Other questions or comments? Bruce is getting ready to start the applause, which is my sign for getting out of town. So yes, one more.
Yeah. Hi, Jay. First, I want to thank you for all that you did for the city of Chelsea during the administration.
It's nice of you to say that's all we did. I happen to be part of it, but thank you for that.
Of course. As a lifelong resident, I've seen the impact of your administration, which is great. So from a real estate perspective, what are your thoughts and feelings on the development that's, there's a lot of developers that are interested in Chelsea now, both big and small.
Yeah.
What would your advice be to the city and how to handle that?
Yeah, I'll tell you that my experience, what I'm seeing around as I go around, is that if you're not building, you're falling behind. And the economy is changing, the world is changing, there are opportunities to take advantage of that. Now, you certainly want to guard against the downsides of development, and you know, we've always been worried about gentrification here. And so, you know, the more you can do on affordable housing, the better, but you can't stop building market rate housing because you're afraid of what impacts they may have. What you need to do is you need to figure out how to promote as much affordable as you can along the way. And the reason why I say that is that, I'm sorry, I forget who I shared this with this morning. Bob Hilton, my good friend Bob Hilton, I shared this story this morning. So I spoke at the Metro West Economic Research Council on Friday. Talked about home ownership amongst different groups. So early boomers, early baby boomers, born between 1945 and 1955. During their period of life when they were 25 to 35 years old, so early boomers, ages 25 to 35, their home ownership rate was 35%. Alan, I don't know about your generation before, but during that generation, it was 35%. Next generation, the late boomers, of which I am one, 55 to 65, dipped to 29, and then Generation X's, it went up to 31. Millennials, the home ownership rate for millennials is 22%. I didn't see you yet. How are you? So this is, I'm hitting you right in your wheelhouse. So millennials, 22%. But millennials are paying mortgages. It's called student debt, right? So the combination of student debt, tighter lending restrictions, except if you're at Metropolitan Credit Union where they'll give anyone money. I probably have, because I still get money. And of course, Eastern Bank, because good. I love the commercials. Commercials are awesome. I was with Quincy Miller last week. I complimented him on them. Commercials are awesome. If you haven't met Bob Rivers, who's a CEO,
CEO of
is that his title?
Yeah,
CEO. Bob Rivers is just an amazing guy, just a tremendous community champion in so many places. But you have the combination of high student debt, tighter lending regulations, and millennials aren't putting down roots. Though, they don't want and can't afford to buy in communities right now, and people want some flexibility. They're not owning homes, and that's going to have a dramatic impact on all of us. The opportunity is that they will live in communities in short spurts, and then maybe fall in love with the community and stay, but they may move on. And so rental housing is important, market rate rental housing is important. Communities that are not building those market rate rental housing are losing out on a younger population, they're getting older, and employers are saying, I need to be in places where I can find younger people. And I can't bust them all up from Cambridge, or I can't get a train from South Boston. I need them to be in the community they're in. So communities that aren't building, and aren't building with the idea of millennials needing the rental units, number one, or being able to do what I hope to do sometime, and several others have, which is be the empty nester and come back and find a place that I can live in the city, is going to create problems for those communities. The gravitational pull to the cities is unbelievable. So I play this little game. Company A calls, they're from out of state, they want to talk about coming to Massachusetts. The game I play with myself is how long before they mention the Seaport District or Kendall Square. And it's always less than a minute. The gravitational pull of Boston and Cambridge is so strong, but not everybody can live in Boston and Cambridge. And so that's what we're seeing here. The One North projects are very successful examples of that. If you're a city right now, and I said this to people in Framingham, I told people Framingham, which was a town until last year, they've realized it so much that they actually changed their form of government to be a city form of government. That's how much they feel about it. Worcester, Springfield, Pittsfield, Lowell, New Bedford, Fall River. I got to fund in Fall River the first market rate housing development in not a year, not 5 years, not 10 years, not 20 years. I funded the first market rate housing development in Fall River in 27 years. There's there's this pull to cities. So the answer on Chelsea is that Chelsea is poised to take advantage of that as the best of both worlds. Being next to Boston, tremendous opportunity, but not being part of Boston is a tremendous opportunity. Silver Line service and other expanded service is great. Yeah, there are things that we need to manage. The pressures on housing costs, the transportation-related issues. But I'll end with this story, Alan. So I'm driving through a New England city. I had just stopped in and made a call on a company. And I'm driving through the capital of that city. I'm driving 65 miles an hour on its highway. And it hits me. Isn't it 5:30 in the afternoon? And so I glanced down at my dashboard clock, and sure enough, it was like 5:35. I was above the speed limit in the capital city on a highway. Who has ever done that in Boston? The good news is there's traffic. The bad news is there's traffic. Right? The good news is that there's housing pressures. The bad news is that there's housing pressures. The good news is that as individuals, we can work almost anywhere. The bad news is that companies are dying for more and more labor. So with every good thing, there's a thing that we have to manage. I'd rather be in the situation that we're in, where we're managing the good things and taking advantage of the good things, as opposed to the place that I drove through, where it was a ghost town. So So I would take that as it is. Thanks everyone for listening to me. Alan, you want to?
Thank you very much, Secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, you all know it's been a tradition of the Chelsea Chamber of Commerce to always give our speaker a momentum of the city, which has always been a Chelsea clock. Well, things changed a little bit. The Chamber doesn't have the funds that we used to have. We weren't able to go out and purchase a Chelsea clock, but the Board of Directors did appropriate a sum so we could get you a memento from the city.
What it is?
Box of Kate's Bagels. After you eat the bagels, you can leave the box in your desk, so it will always remind you of Chelsea. And when you do come back to Chelsea, which we hope will be very soon, a little gift card from Chelsea Station. So another one of your developments that went well down there. And you know, Jay truly epitomizes a person, and I say this in all seriousness, a person who never forgot where he came from, and a person who never forgot who his friends are. That really, you know, if anybody wants a raffle ticket, raise your hand, Renee will come over, we'll do the drawing right afterwards. Well, Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for joining us, it was great. And speaking of great things, I'd like to thank our fellow Rotarian, Maureen Foley from the Colburn Hotels, for an excellent buffet. Thank you very much, Maureen. And Jay, you mentioned the hotel chain that she's on the phone constantly. They must want something, because in the back of the room there was a name up there of this room, and now all of a sudden it says the J. Ash Ballroom. So you did leave your presence.
So the night that Leo and a couple of others, I think Bob was involved in it, announced that this was the J. Ash Ballroom. Speaker DeLeo was also here for the event. And so now he's fond whenever we're at an event together, including somewhere in Central Mass, I forget what town it was. He says, you know, the most memorable night I've ever had was when I was in the room when they named the J. Ash Ballroom. So people remember that. I tell people all the time, if you've seen me dance, you wouldn't have named the ballroom after.
Thank you. Okay, Renee, and we raffled off 2 tickets for the Red Sox from last night? No, June 8th. Oh, okay. Would you ask our guest speaker if he would do the honors? You'll make 1 friend. Oh, make 2 friends.
Oh, one person could have bought 2 tickets.
That's right. This is the Red Sox ticket. And it's a pink ticket, and the last 3 numbers are 527. And it's this color pink. Todd Taylor.
How many Red Sox tickets with us?
2.
Oh, that's interesting.
And this one is for
Dylan's spa basket.
a Dylan Spa basket. Was it a basket full of steam? What's in the spa? And the last 3 numbers are 531. 531.
I'm gonna donate it back later.
All right, Dennis Cataldo will exchange it for Jay's gift card. Is that what you said? Okay. Yeah, Dennis is donating it back. He's not a big fan of steam baths.
Very sensitive skin.
The only guy in here wears glasses. Give him the tickets. Number 514. 514. Ah. Rich Tuckey, thank you very much for all your work putting this together today. Our executive director always does a phenomenal job for the chamber. Rich, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to seeing you at the Pot of Gold in October. Thank you for joining us. It was a great one.